Hey, I hope you're all doing well. This is video 10 of Successful Living. We're getting near the end of the series. Last week we talked about, we're going through the passages in Nehemiah. I think it gives an amazing description of being called by God, or, having something really deeply on our heart to move forward with God, and the obstacles we face, the provisions that God gives us, and the battles. We are in today chapter 5. So, what we discussed last week was, that Nehemiah uh, came to the people and they all agreed to build the wall, and they had Sanballat, who was Samaria, and then Ammonites, Ashdodites. There's a few other groups of people or tribes that they conspired against to attack Jerusalem while they were building the wall. So during, a few things happened. Sanballat and Tobiah, who were from Samaria, they were taunting Nehemiah. And then they're like, hey, they conspired to kill him. Hey, why don't you come out to this open space? Us leaders will get together and we'll talk. Nehemiah totally ignored him. And then when he heard about the plan that he had gathered surrounding areas to attack, they did not stop the work. They ignored the taunts, but they prepared themselves for battle if they had to, but they still moved forward with the work. And that's what we have to do also. We have to prepare ourselves that if I'm going to prioritize, if I'm going to have my quiet time with God, if I'm going to put Him first, if I'm going to seek God first, and, maybe change my schedule or change my friend group or change my activities, we are going to have outside obstacles from people who don't want us to follow God. And sometimes it can come from unanticipated areas. Anyway, what happens in Nehemiah 5 is that after they were building a wall, there arose another problem. And this problem was because now there were leaders, there were rulers and leaders and merchants and businessmen, and what they were doing was, because they were poor people, they were a broken down people. They had returned to Jerusalem, to Israel, but they hadn't really been successful in protecting themselves. Really, that's why Nehemiah was there. So there was a great outcry among the poor people, because they were saying, we are in debt. We are giving our lands and giving our homes and even giving our children in work so that we can feed ourselves. And our Jewish leaders, the leaders among us are the ones who are putting us under such difficult circumstances. It says we're mortgaging our fields, our vineyards, our houses to buy grain because of the famine. And then there were also others who were saying, we've borrowed money on our fields and vineyards because the Persian king had heavy taxes. And now we're just like our relatives. Our children are like their children. We are even giving our children, selling them for labor, our sons and daughters to be slaves so that we can eat. When Nehemiah found out about this, he was so mad. He was so mad, and he thought it over, and he got with God, and he challenged all of the nobles and the rulers. And he said, what are you doing? What are you doing? You are collecting interest and tax from your own brothers, your relatives. He said, according to our ability, you need to let this go. We were sold to other nations. The Babylonians did that to us. The Babylonians took our land and our vineyards and our houses and took our children. And you're going to do that too? And so he addressed all the leaders. He goes, shouldn't you walk in the fear of God? and stop this taunting of the other nations and stop this taunting of our enemies, why are you doing the same things that our enemies have done to us? Give them back their fields, their vineyards, and their olive gardens and their houses, and give them back some of this extra tax that you've taken from them. And they all agreed to do it. They all totally acknowledged that they were in the wrong, and they went back and gave the people back their lands. And my whole point about this, and I'm running a little long, is that when we finally overcome our outward enemies or our outward obstacles, we find that there are inward inward obstacles. And sometimes we treat our own selves with such harshness. We treat our own selves in the battles that we have within. So even though God provided everything that Nehemiah needed, God put the work on his heart. There are still going to be obstacles, and that doesn't mean that God is not with you, because he is. That doesn't mean that God's not on your side, because he is. It's just that it's very important. This mindset existed within the people, within these nobles and rulers and merchants. The mindset existed, and it had to be addressed. And once it was addressed in truth, then they repented and got right. And the same things with the battles that we find within ourselves. It just has to be addressed with truth. Whether we need love, whether we need to get right, whether we need to forgive ourselves, we just have to let the truth deal with that and agree with the truth. And then after that happened, they got on with the work.